Hello, welcome to Plan Dulce, a podcast from the Latinos in Planning Division, focused on bringing attention to the issues affecting the Latin community and the topics that affect us both as individuals and as a collective. Today, we are so thrilled to have two candidates running for APA director positions, Edna and Silvia, and the Latinos in Planning division is endorsing them. For a full list, please visit the APA website. And elections are open through August 20th, so you'll be able to cast your vote. So just a quick overview of who our amazing guests are. Edna Ledesma is an assistant professor in the Department of Planning and Landscape Architecture at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, where she directs the Kaufman Lab for the study and design of food systems and marketplaces. The corpus of her research, teaching, and mentoring focuses on understanding the development of the smart, green, and just 21st century city. Her work seeks to bridge the gap between communities and city governments to help define the planning and design agency of Latinos, a traditionally underrepresented group. So, very important work. And we also have Silvia Vargas. Silvia is a professional planner with more than 28 years of experience, which is truly amazing. In her practice of planning, she always strives to increase understanding of the value of the profession, to raise the bar of civic discourse, and to empower stakeholders to claim ownership in the community planning and plan implementation processes. Currently, Silvia is a principal planner in the Miami office of Calvin Giordano and Associates, where she works on a variety of long-range and current planning projects, as well as providing creative public engagement for South Florida communities. We are so excited to have you both, and we just want to, give you a warm welcome. And to everybody who is listening, we're thrilled to have you as well. So, Leonor, if you want to start off.
Yeah, con mucho orgullo te presentamos a Silvia y Edna. So, with the first question is, okay, Edna, where are you in the United States? Or not?
I am in the US. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you so much for putting this together to all of you. I'm so proud of LAP and so proud of our community, and I'm very honored to be here. Currently, I live in Madison, Wisconsin, but as was mentioned, I'm a professor, and so I travel around in the summer, and I'm currently in Texas. I'm visiting my parents. I'm on the border in Brownsville.
And Silvia, where are you now?
Well, as you heard, I'm based in Miami, and I have been here for many, many years. I came to the U.S. as a student from Costa Rica, so the U.S. is my second home. Been here now longer than I actually lived in my own country, because I came here at 18, and you can probably see how old I am now. But from Miami, I love it here because I can go to Latin America. I can be in my home country in 2.5 hours and travel from our international airport, which is the gateway to the Americas and pretty much the gateway to the world. So right now I'm here until my husband finishes the semester. He's teaching summer. He's a professor too. And he finishes, we're probably going to go to Costa Rica, and then we're also going to go to Kansas, which is where we both went to school, to visit some friends there.
Wow, what a packed summer you're going to have. So we know that COVID has impacted all of our lives, and so Silvia, what's been your experiences with COVID so far?
Yeah. I gotta say that to me, the whole experience has been very surprising. In terms of the work, we actually didn't miss a beat, which was pretty extraordinary. We pivoted immediately with the technology. I was already working several days a week from home. And before I joined this firm, I used to work for another firm where their base was in Philadelphia, and I was here in Miami, and I was working from home. I did that for about 8 years with a team up in Philadelphia, traveling up there and traveling all over the Southeast, which is where I did the majority of my projects. So as far as that went, the transition was very, very smooth, and the work continued. I think the challenge that I had was with some of my clients to help them make the shift to virtual public engagement. Some of them just could not envision it, and I worked a little hard to convince them that it was possible, because I had done it before as a consultant working remotely, and I had done a lot of virtual engagement as part of an overall engagement program. But for the most part, we were able to pivot immediately. Personal life-wise, I guess I'm kind of feeling the impacts more now than at the beginning, because I continue to work from home quite a bit, and I feel like I've grown into a little bit of a hermit. I try not to go out too much, and you may have seen some news that Florida is not doing that great right now, with COVID cases surging again. So I'm feeling like I don't want to step foot outside my house if I can, which makes me feel very sort of introverted right now. But here in South Florida, if you go out, and that's probably part of the problem, our communities are, for the most part, back to a certain form of normalcy. So sometimes when I do go out into the world, it feels a little surreal, to be honest. So yeah, that's my experience.
And so, Edna, I know that you're teaching, and you did teach last year. So can you tell us a little bit about what that's been like?
Yeah, I mean, I would agree with Silvia. I had a very similar experience where things sort of happened really fast, but we thankfully had access to the technology and the resources at the university to be able to make that transition immediately into virtual learning environments. I was teaching in person last spring when we went into lockdown, and then essentially finished out the semester online. And in the fall, I was planning an engaged, I teach applied planning studios, and it was an interdisciplinary studio with landscape architecture. We're working with a community out in Milwaukee to help them inform and update for a comprehensive plan of a community north of the downtown. And at the center of that community was a farmer's market. A lot of my work is working with markets, mercados, flea markets, swap meets, and farmers markets. And so it was a great project. I was super excited. It was going to be my first project in Milwaukee. A lot of my work has been in Texas and California. And then, the big curveball of, like, you plan these things months and months advance. The partnership was set in December of 2019, and then COVID hit. And so thankfully, there was already another partnership built up with Esri, who actually, we got to pilot some of their virtual engagement technology. And so it actually facilitated a lot of our work. I would say the biggest impact, we had a really successful studio. It was the first time that in my department that landscape architecture students worked in studio with planners. So that was a really great success. The project was recently awarded a planning award from the Wisconsin ASLA chapter. And it's the model that I work with. It's the model that I think is the future and what we see in practice, collaboration. But I think the biggest challenge, I think, for all of us, and just what I saw in the classroom, is so much fracturing related to mental health, right? Like, we all wanted to keep working, we wanted to keep pushing, but at the end of the day, working in this little environment it fractures people. And so coming in every day to class and saying, is everyone okay? And knowing that people were not okay was really hard. And then getting the emails of students saying, I can't, I want to give it my all, but I can't. So I think, as a society, we're having to come to terms with, what are our boundaries and how much we need to just do a lot more nurturing of each other and taking care of our community. And that can be said too from the other side, right? The communities we engage with. We ask them to come and give their input, but at the end of the day, everyone's been having to balance a lot. But I'm hopeful. I'm very much a glass half full person. And so I'm optimistic that we've had to dive deep into the pool And we're not gonna sink. We're helping each other out. So,
if I may, could I add just something that just made me think about, because as I mentioned at the beginning, my husband is a college professor too. He's a chemist, so it's a very different kind of environment. But I think that one of the reckonings that we've had through this period that I noticed, particularly with students, has been the digital divide, right? Because resources are very different. Colleges are not all able to provide the same kinds of resources to the students for them to be able to work remotely. We've seen that. I've seen it. This is the first time that I actually have been able to observe my husband in his teaching here at home. Now he's teaching hybrid. And also what you just said about mental health, because, I've also heard my husband talk a lot more about sort of the decline of active engagement by the students. They're not asking as many questions. They're very passive. They hide behind, their little black screens. You don't know what's going on with them. So yeah, I think that that's really, really sort of stark coming through this period. And it struck me quite a bit, even though I'm not in that world,
No, that's actually good to hear. I know from a disability community, the accessibility issues have been a big challenge, but we in the disability community find this very engaging because we're so used to it. We're used to being always, having the issues of technology and not being at the table. And then to kind of see it flip around, being able to have meetings at home and be able to participate, it has really changed, I think, the dialogue and the framework. And so it's also good to hear that there are also mental health issues now being talked about. And
Right.
so, the silent disabilities aren't being put behind closed doors. And so, it's got its good, COVID had its good and it's got its pluses, and minuses. But I kind of want to transition and I want to know a little bit more about you. And so we, here, or me especially, I love food. So I'm going to ask you.
Listen.
Oh, it's true. I really do. So what is the one childhood memory that you have that revolves around food? So can you tell us a little bit about that?
You want to kick it off, Edna?
I can start. I can start because it's something that I've never let go of. I think it speaks to the planner in me. So I remember when we were little, every time you go to the grocery store, you're like, Mom, can I have this? Can I have this? Can I have this? And your mom's like, no, pick one thing. And I always wanted to get a yogurt. I loved yogurt, like the little cup of yogurt. But I would always come home and I didn't want to eat it. I wanted to save it. I was planning for the future, right? So I would go home, and I remember one time I was like, I'm going to put it in the back of the fridge. So my brother, I have an older sister and a younger brother. So I'd go hide it in the fridge because I wanted to save mine. They ate it in the car, right? They were like, we got yogurt. This is great. So I remember one time we went home and I put it in the back of the fridge. I was very meticulous about hiding it behind the lettuce and the whatever. And I came like a couple of days later to look for it. It was gone. They had seen that I hid my yogurt, and my brother and my sister like planned it. And then I questioned them. They're like, oh yeah. My sister was like, I went and got up Jerry in the morning and like, we went and ate it. They had a plan, but it's just like, that's just my personality. I'm very just like, I'm very.
You're a planner.
Yeah. And also very like systematic. I'm like, this isn't for now, so I'm going to save it for later. It didn't work out. That's just life.
Well, for me, I think that all of the memories that I associate with food in childhood have to do with family, because I had a big, big family on both sides. And so, the Sunday lunches, los tés de las tías at home, where all my aunts would come and they would sit down at the long table with the best setup, the best cutlery, the best everything, silverware. And I would hide under the table and listen to them have these long conversations that half of it I didn't understand, but they stuck with me because they all revolved around family stories that I still remember very clearly, even though I had no idea at the time. And possibly another story that I can tell you is a very indelible. Going to my paternal grandmother's house on Saturday afternoons, and my paternal grandparents were campesinos, and they had a beautiful, sort of country house, if you will, the adobe, so mud walls, like this thick. And in the kitchen, they had an electric stove, but in the back they had the old wood stove, and it had a little drawer beneath. And obviously they were not using that anymore, but this is where they would hide los bizcochos. And we, the little kids, would know that that's where they were. So the first thing that we did was go over there and open the drawer and make sure that we had bizcochos, and then we would sit in the patio eating the bizcochos. So that's the well, there's many, but that's probably the second most joyful food memory that I have of my childhood.
I love that.
Iglesia, what about yours?
Oh, I was trying to think.
Oh,
Yeah,
come on, it can't be that long ago, because you're so.
yeah. I actually had a similar experience to Dr. Ledesma. I would get so excited anytime I went to the grocery store because I would always try to pick one thing, and it was like my thing, and I was like so thrilled. Like whenever we got home and we're unpacking the groceries, I'm like, wait, where did I put it? In which bag is it? Which bag is it? Like I didn't want anybody to take it. So yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, there's something about like saving it and like almost kind of treasuring it in a sense. So yeah, there's that connection between food and like grocery store and like going with your mom and the whole kind of dance that you do of like, can I get this? Can I get that? So yeah, I guess I have a similar one as well.
Wow, this is a fantastic segue to how did you get involved in planning? So Edna?
That's a great question because I actually, I think Silvia, you too, I began my career in architecture.
Right.
And so I grew up in a household where my mother is a community organizer. She's very active in like faith-based community organizing and very engaged in local politics. And my daddy is a contractor. So I kind of feel like I'm a little bit of both of I embody a little bit of both of their existence. And growing up around construction sites, I was like, well, this makes sense. Like I'm very detail oriented. I wanted to, grow up and be an architect. So that was my path. And I went to architecture school, and in architecture school, towards your junior year, like it's really in like the second half, you do really actually start engaging with issues of the city and sort of the urbanistic approach to design. And that really is what drew me to planning, is the idea that, we are in cities and societies, we're here to help one another. The humanist approach to architecture was missing. And really where I found it was in planning. And I really kind of stumbled into it through a series of mentors that were incredibly important in my life and sort of shaping me and showing me the way towards research, eventually going into teaching and research. But really it was this idea that I really do fundamentally believe that design matters, but it doesn't matter if you're not engaging with human needs and you're not actually understanding how it's going to impact communities. And so, I teach design in planning courses. And so that's my goal, is to try to connect both worlds. But there's a lot more to be done. But I do feel very proud of the work that APA has been doing to really address equity and talk about the realities of our built environment and the marginalization of communities of color, to try to develop better plans and be more aware of the impact that these sort of higher structures have in communities, that a lot of people don't realize how much they impact their life until it's a little too late. So that's my mission, is try to connect both worlds.
And Silvia?
Well, I almost feel like I have very little to add, because Edna's story is very similar to mine. up to the point where she went into academia. I also come from a home where both of my parents were, they were both public servants. They worked in government. My father was an attorney, but he always said to me that if when he was growing up, there had been some of the choices that I had in front of me, he would have taken a completely different path. He was in public administration. He was involved in politics. Both my parents were very active politically and always in public service. And I don't know how I got it into my head that what I wanted to do was be an architect, but at 7 years of age, that's what I decided, that's what I knew, and that's what I worked for. And when the time came and I came to the U.S. to study, that's what the intent was. And when I started my third year, I was starting to feel a little lost because I felt like my interests were different when I approached projects than most of my classmates. And I thought there was something wrong with me. But it became somewhat of an existential crisis at some point when I went into my fourth year. And I really didn't feel fully supported in that pursuit or in that sort of exploration by some of the professors that I had, because their focus was so much narrower. But I did have a very good advisor who, after listening to me crying a number of times over my angst, revealed the world of planning to me. I had no idea. I come from Latin America, where planning as a profession is still fairly novel. Architects do urban design, they do planning, they do almost everything that you can think of, which is perhaps the reason why I decided that I wanted to do that. But thanks to my mentor, I kind of fell accidentally into urban planning. And once I took my first class, everything seemed to click. Everything made sense. Everything was happy in the world again. And it was certainly meant to be my path. So, yeah.
So with that said, what are some words of wisdom that you received before going on your planning journey? I know, Silvia, for you, it was this existential crisis that may have pivoted you into a different direction. Knowing what you know now, what advice would you give potential, urban planners and even urban planners now that are having, self-doubt with everything that's happening in the world? What advice would you give us?
Well, as it happens, I get to mentor a lot of students now, both who are already sort of in the path to become planners, and thanks to a network of friends who are in allied professions, I also get to do it for students in architecture and other allied professions as well, when they sort of seem to be straddling a line between their chosen path and something else, and they're not sure, and I always tell them to keep an open mind, and don't tie yourselves to your own expectations that you created, because sometimes it's just, as planners, we kind of like to have everything sort of clear and laid out, right? Like the yogurt that we put in the back of the refrigerator. But sometimes allowing for the unexpected to happen is the best thing that can happen to you. And just kind of keep yourself open to those opportunities. Don't be afraid to say yes to those opportunities, even if it's scary or if you think that you're not going to know what to do. I think that would be, because, and I say this because, to be honest, for me to switch from architecture, which I did, I in my fourth year, in the middle of my fourth year, I decided that I was going to switch to planning, and I went into an accelerated planning undergraduate degree so that I could get into the master's program as quickly as possible. And I was lucky because, I had all the credits behind me that, you know, I could transfer into and take like 1 or 2 semesters more and finish the undergraduate degree. But for years, I berated myself for failing, you know, for failing in pursuing, you know, in completing that goal that I had set for myself to actually be an architect or become an architect. And it took a lot of maturity, a lot of maturing rather, in my career to sort of let that go, even though I was so happy doing what I was doing. After becoming a planner, I still had this thing in the back of my mind that I have failed. And I think part of it was because I was so set on that for all of my years until, you know, that time when it came to, you know, the moment of making that decision. And I still couldn't let it go. So that's why, you know, I say staying open is the best advice that I would give somebody like myself today.
Edna, I see you shaking your head. I know that you're agreeing.
I totally agree. I would say that's probably something that we need to hear more of, right? The recognition that it's okay that things change, new opportunities come by. I love that you said also be okay with saying yes. I think as women, we're told say no, protect your time. But I think you also need to recognize that when you're asked, it's because your voice is going to be heard. And I think that's really important. I would say that my biggest advice to people that that are sort of entering the profession, or just I think any Latino, Latina, Chicano, Chicana, minority individual within our field, my big advice is to just don't forget who you are. And it's okay to empower your identity with your work. Yeah. And I can say that in the context of my experience coming in, you know, we moved to this country when I was very little. I was 7. And so it's the idea that we all come with very multicultural, multidimensional identities, right? I'm Mexicana and I'm American. I don't have an accent and I speak fluent Spanish. It's my first language, but I still can never be perfect in either, right? So it's like, I'm always trying to please everyone. And the thing that I struggled with in developing my research is that, you know, I didn't want to be the Latina planner. I wanted to be the girl, you know, as an American, I was like, I want to go to Brooklyn. Like, I want to go study New York. I want to go study XYZ, these sort of bigger American cities. And then looking for funding, you know, when I came back with, no, you're not going to get funded, it was very disheartening. And my mentor sat me down and said, who are you? You're Edna, you're from the Valley, you're a Mexican, you're American, and you're an architect who wants to be a planner. You're trying to get a planning degree. So what do all those things mean? Don't forget that you're an architect. Even though you may not be practicing architecture, you still have that training. How can that inform your planning research? If you're from the Valley, why aren't you telling the story of the Valley? Why aren't you doing research on the Valley? Why are you running away from who you are? And I think that for a lot of us, it's hard to say, you know, I don't want to be pigeonholed. And it's not being pigeonholed. I think recognizing that you can tell a story like nobody else can, right? Silvia can tell a story like nobody else can of Latin America, of Miami, of that transition between design and planning, right? We all come from very different contexts. And so if you're put in a position where you can share that story, embrace your identity. And that's like, none of us come with one identity. We all come with very, very different packages, and trying to blend all those things is really important.
Yeah, I agree, especially as we try to promote the understanding that as Latinos, we are a lot of different things, not just one monolithic thing, right? So that goes for each of us as individuals, and for, you know, the world, the multifaceted world that we each of us carry within ourselves. I agree.
Interesting. Edna, there's also, I want to do, also another layer for those planners that are thinking about going into academia. We know that academia and being female is tough. Being Latina, first generation, very, very tough, right? And so any words of wisdom there?
I would say, I think that as planners, we always focus on the big picture. But sometimes I think the best thing you can do, if I had told myself back when I was 18 that you're going to be in school for the next 13 years of your life, I would have been like, you're crazy. You're crazy. That's not going to happen, right? You can't, sometimes looking at the big picture can be overwhelming. So just embrace the short milestones. Like, I finished the semester and I'm going home. I'm done. Take a break, decompress, go eat pan dulce, go be with mommy and papi and eat the tamales, and don't think about school. Because if I had, and I've told this to people, if I had listened to individuals, I've been given a lot, and I want to do the same for others. I've been given so much and so many opportunities, but I've also been in situations where I'm sitting in a room and I'm told, no, this isn't for you. So if I had listened to that one person, and it was one of many, I wouldn't be here. So accept a no and walk away and go knock at another door. So, and I think that's the biggest advice I can give people, that it's, don't get disheartened by a no. You'll find another opportunity. And that's what, I think Silvia's advice is, like, at the end of the day, it might not be the way you planned it, but it'll work out. But just don't give up.
So, Silvia, what do you envision for yourself in the next year? Personally and professionally.
Boy, that is a tough question. Right now, it's very, very busy at work. Not just for me, for everyone in my group, for everyone in our firm. And I think generally, at least, here in South Florida, we're finding that that's the case. And I've heard from others elsewhere that it seems to be a very busy time, which is kind of the opposite that we thought was going to happen last year when this started. And maybe we just miscalculated the timelines, and who knows what could happen, but I think over the next 6 months, I'm just going to try to get over this terrible camel hump that I'm on, of just overwhelming work and stress, and come to a quiet moment if I can, because it feels like the last 6 months have been nonstop. I don't like having moments, not having moments of quiet thinking and thinking about the big picture. It feels like everything that I'm doing right now is a lot about putting out fires on a daily basis, and that doesn't lend itself to the thing that really fulfills me, which is thinking about planning as a profession, how to advance thinking on planning. So I'm hoping that maybe by the end of this year, I will have the opportunity to do that more, and to be able to have a little bit more control over the kind of work that I'm doing. And on a personal, well, yeah, I guess one thing is really tied to the other, because, the stress that I feel that I'm under right now is not really good for my health, mental or physical. So I'm hoping that, with everything control on the work side, I'm also going to be able to get some other things under control. But, I'm at a point where I'm not old enough to retire, but I'm starting to think longingly of that moment, and starting to plan a little bit about what that might look like when it happens. So maybe next year, by the time my birthday comes around, I'm going to be doing a little bit more planning about that.
Okay. Probably not what we want to hear, but
No, listen, if I retire, I'm going to be able to devote all my time to volunteering at APA, which is what I really love to do.
All right. So no, I actually like hearing that, because I think as a mentor, and I there are very few Latinos, Latinas, that are mentors and are able to give back and to be able to provide a pathway. And I think that's, good to hear that you're going to continue doing that more. And so, Edna, with the school year 3 more weeks away, or 4, what's on the horizon for you? And also, what research projects do you have kind of, going forward?
Yeah, well, I'll just make a quick note to Silvia. I think, Silvia and I have been in collaboration in different capacities. I think the last year we've become, like, all of us have become very active on Zoom calls. But I so look forward to when we can reconnect, in person at the national conferences, at the state conferences, at Leonor, at the different academic conferences. The last time I ran into you, I was about to move to Wisconsin, and now I'm like,
Yep.
I'm here. It's 2 years later, right? So I think, I'm a people person. I thrive on social interaction. And I can't wait to do that again, to be able to hop on the plane and go meet my friends from all over the place. In the very immediate future is the beginning of the new academic year. I actually am very fortunate that this year, prior to COVID, this is something that was in my pipeline since I came to Wisconsin. I have a fellowship. And so I actually won't be teaching for the next year. So it kind of worked out that, like, this transition year of back to in-person, I won't be around for it. I will be in Wisconsin. I do have some committee and kind of on-campus obligations, but I won't be teaching. So I will really be focusing primarily on my research. The co-director of the lab, he's not going to be chair, and you know him very well, Dr. Alfonso Morales. He's the chair of our department. So I'm really excited because he's a wonderful mentor. He is a pioneer in doing research Latino and doing research for the last 20 years on markets. And so I'm kind of inheriting a lot of what he built, the foundation of that lab, and thinking of new directions and how to bring in more geospatial work, more design into it, into our research. And that's really exciting. The other project I have in the pipeline that I worked on this summer, which I find really exciting in that it's a very different area of focus, working with the planning department here in Brownsville on a telehealth plan. So I'm working with medical doctors and thinking about the digital divide, how to better connect communities post-COVID, and just in general as we advance into a more tech-driven infrastructure, how does that impact communities of color, specifically Latinos down here? So that's really exciting. And then on my personal side, I got engaged during the pandemic. So I actually am getting married in a few months. So that's also been fun to be, I think the pandemic, realizing just like life could end any second. And I'm a workaholic, like many of us are. And so it really helped me kind of put into perspective how to balance my life in a way that makes sense. My fiance is also an academic, so we keep each other busy with nerdy stuff. But that's been nice. And so yeah, it's been a very difficult time. Thankfully, I had family that had COVID, but people survived. But I know others that have lost many. So I feel like I've come out of this with a great perspective on just how to value what we do, and the value of planning is really important, and just the value of keeping our communities together. So I'm excited for the year ahead.
Felicitaciones.
Gracias.
So 2 more questions before we end. So is there anything that you would like to add that I've not asked? Grecia hasn't asked anything this time.
No, I've just been listening, and I don't know. I'm just very inspired by you all's words and everything you've shared. And I wanted to say something to something we were talking about earlier about like saying yes, and I feel like there's a balance of like the yeses and the nos. And for me, at least, it's been like, okay, being more like really thinking about the things that I do say yes to, and having those be things that I actually want to do and I'm curious about, and I'm curious about learning more about, as opposed to saying yes to the things I feel I have to say yes to. So that's been hard because, like imposter syndrome kicks in, and it's like, well, who am I to like say no, or, I should be taking every opportunity I have. But like, you have to be mindful. You only have so much time, so much energy. So being very intentional about the things that you say yes to, and is that gonna really bring you closer to like your bigger goals, and like, or just kind of, I don't know, just having honest conversations with yourself. So anyway, that's my take on it. But yeah, everything
Very
you all
wise.
said really resonated. Yeah.
So anything you'd like to add?
No, I think that what Grecia just said is really wise, actually, because when you're young, you wanna sort of take every opportunity that comes, and at some point you realize that you can say no and you can be more strategic. But at the same time, I think it really depends on your own temperament, your personality, your ability to manage your time as well. I mean, I've always been a really curious person. I guess it's one of the reasons when I was in college, I had all these electives that I just couldn't get enough of electives in fields that had nothing to do with what I was really focusing on, because I was like the that cartoon where the dog sees the squirrel, right? It was like, oh, squirrel. Astronomy, yes. Geography, sure. French, of course. And I found a use for all of these things in my life, on and on. But as a professional, and also particularly, I think since last year, I do find myself being more selective, and trying to make sure that I balance my participation in things, especially if I feel that there may be a little bit of tokenism, and that's a really hard decision to make sometimes, because I often find that, if I'm the first person or the only person that is being asked to do something, is it, is it a negative thing that I'm the first Latino or Latina, or is it actually a good thing that I'm going to be able to break some walls down for others? That's one of the places where I always have trouble, not trouble, but have a harder time figuring out whether I should say no or not. But yeah, I think with age comes more the ability to make those choices, for sure.
Edna, any?
I would say sort of last closing statements. I just want to say that as the former chair of Latinos in Planning Division, I came in, and this goes to Grecia probably more, but I came in, I was a student. I was in the beginning of my PhD, and my mentor had been very active with LAP when it was founded. And she said, this is a community that you need to be a part of. And I was there, before when we had conference calls, we'd call in, we didn't have Zoom. We'd call into the conference call every month. And I felt very honored to be included. And just, I gave it, I would got involved with committees, et cetera, et cetera. And I think just the growth, I'm so proud of Vidal. Vidal is awesome. Vidal has been with LAP for over a decade. And he has really, really, over the last year, COVID really impacted and really, I think it facilitated connections more than probably we thought would in that context, right? Divisions are members are all over the states. And so the fact that our division membership and mostly our engagement has really, it really surpassed my expectations when I handed the throne over to him and said, good luck. I never thought that the programming, the Lugares conference, all of this, the podcast, what you guys have been doing is such great work. And so for all of our members that maybe are watching this, I'm just going to say, you have an opportunity to continue to give our community a positive light. So get involved, just get involved. I was a student, that's how I got involved as a student. And I have found a wonderful community within LAP and also within divisions and with APA at large. And, I'm a lifer now. I'm committed to continue to, bring light to our community. And I want others, Grecia, all of you, Leonor, keep bringing people back. You tell your friends at work, like, hey, do you know about LAP? Join LAP, get involved, because it's really important. We're small. I always say we're a small but mighty division.
Yes, definitely. And then one last question. Inquiring minds want to know, especially me. If you're going to have churros y chocolate, because, we have to end plan dulce. There we go. Which flavors of churro do you prefer?
Oh. Cajeta.
Or un pique con el
Ooh, love
chocolate.
that.
Cajeta. Also, this maybe, are any of you from California?
No.
Tijuana.
Okay. So this is my thing. I've gone to California, and in California, nobody puts cajeta in their churros. So I don't know if this is like this part of
Cajeta dulce de leche?
Yeah.
Dulce de leche.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I would put in it.
Well, you know what? That's exactly what I was going to go for, because I don't don't kill me, please, but I don't like chocolate. And so if I have churros, they usually are rellenos con dulce de leche, que es, cajeta. That's not, how I learned to eat them when I was in Spain for the first time, which is, like, oh my God, churros. But, yeah, dulce de leche churros is the way to go for sure for me. Yeah.
And I can just, go ahead. Sorry.
No, go ahead. But I just wanted to just sort of echo Edna's work. I've been involved with the division on and off. I got to be honest, there was a time when I kind of felt like it really wasn't for me, perhaps because the context in which I've evolved as a planner, being here in South Florida is such a different experience than working in other Latino communities. It's like, we're all of it, and our issues are probably no different than the issues of other communities within South Florida, or perhaps in other places for other ethnic groups or racial groups. And so I felt at a time that perhaps I didn't fit in, but I've been extremely impressed in the last year or two with the work that is being done within the division. And I just been embracingly enthusiastically, because it's amazing. So I want to commend you all, and also recommend others to join the division, because it is a great community. It really is.
And Grecia, churros y chocolate. Which
I was going to say, yeah, so I'm from Tijuana, and I recently went to visit family like 2 weeks ago. And they, like, the churro scene has like exploded. They have these like churros in a cup you can get, and they put like, you can choose your toppings, and they have dulce de leche, cajeta, and then they have this like alcoholic thing you can put on it. I don't know what it is, but you know what I mean. They have all kinds of toppings now. So I'd recommend, if you ever get the chance to go to like Southern California or Tijuana, like give it a chance. But I love them with ice cream, with vanilla ice cream. So that's my favorite. Like, you dip them in, it's so good. So, and yeah, just echoing what you both have said, this has been a very welcoming group, and I'm very thankful that I found it. I really get so much out of our meetings, like just listening to everybody. That's like, it kind of just fills me with energy. So yeah, definitely very thankful, and we're very welcoming. So if anybody out there is thinking of joining, we will welcome you with open arms. So happy to have anybody who's interested.
Yep. So Grecia, what can we expect about future Plan Dulce? And for those of you, and just 1 second, for those of you who will be seeing us, let us know what you think of the our Zoom background, Plan and Dulce, podcast, and and how we could always maybe improve with other dessert items, and let us know. So with that said, yeah.
Yeah, we are open. We have a growth mindset, so we're open to feedback. Please let us know. You can reach us at plandulcepodcast@gmail.com. And yeah, leave us any comments there. We hope to have Twitter and maybe Instagram soon, and you can reach us there as well. If we have it before this goes live, we'll put it in the description box. And yeah, if you would like to keep in touch with our speakers, they both have social media handles. So Edna, Professor Edna is on Twitter at Edna Ledesma, and then Silvia is as Vargas _planner. So yeah, give them a follow because you both have great things going on. So we'd love to, please keep us updated. And yeah, as far as future topics go, I mean, there's just so many. There's just so many from, I had mentioned in the trailer, anything from health issues affecting our community. Now, disabilities, today's the 31st anniversary of the ADA. So definitely bringing more attention to that because it's so important and we don't talk about it enough. And transportation, housing, anything urban planning related, and even mental health. I would love to do one on mental health. So yeah, if you have ideas, again, please email us at plandulcepodcast@gmail. And yeah, thank you all so much for listening. This was so amazing. I had a great time. I hope that everybody else did too.